Are your parents still alive?
They are.
Oh, that's great. They must be so proud of you.
They are really they're really supportive, and this has always been my calling, music, my entire life since I was a
Right.
little boy. So for people that have known me a long time, I get the hey, no surprise there, and but I'm really lucky because 30 years ago, Ken, I was interning at Polygram Records at a distribution office where I first learned so much of the business.
In LA?
No, in Maryland, outside Washington,
Maryland.
D.C., here in Montgomery County. I
Right.
mean, and I was working overnights at a gas station while I was
Wow.
doing this. So, man,
Before I moved
like
before I moved to New York to study jazz, I was working overnights at a gas station.
you too.
And I got robbed one night. Yeah.
I had the place vandalized one time. I fell asleep in the chair late at night, and some guys came through and stole sodas and smashed some 2-liter bottles. I'll never forget. I had a very nice man that I worked for there. He was a good guy, but all I'm saying is all of us have had different journeys, and we've been at the bottom of the shoe before and or whatever, but it really makes it more sweeter. I really appreciate having this creative life where I get to base my day to day on creating art.
Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Next to me is a man who needs no introduction, the jazz detective, the king of deep digs, the master of resonance records, the continuation of George Claiborne, the one and only Zev Maurice Feldman. How are you, Zev?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Ken.
So we're going to talk about the incredible bounty that Zev has hit us up this with for the forthcoming record store day, and I'm going to briefly show you these records. I mean, it's an incredible cross section of American jazz. Oh,
Thank
there
you.
it is. There's the Art Tatum. I can do this gently. The amazing Yusef Lateef that I've already reviewed on my channel. That's a tremendous record. Cannonball Adderley, Poppin in Paris. An amazing Sun Ra record. This is my introduction to Sun Ra.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's sort of what I thought it would be, and even more. Cannonball Adderley, Burnin in Bordeaux, another record from France. Then we have Chet Baker and Jack Sheldon, an unusual record. A much needed Shelly Manne record store day release, a fantastic recording, and also much needed Sister Rosetta Tharpe release. And most people don't know who she is or her importance in the worlds of jazz and rock and roll. Perhaps my favorite of the entire set that really blew my mind, Mal Waldron, Steve Lacy, the Mighty Warriors. And then, no, my absolute favorite of the set, the Sonny Rollins box set, which is just a Freedom Weaver, the 1959 European tour recordings. So I'd like to get the story of each one of these releases from
Got it.
Zev, and I have a couple that I'm going to play devil's advocate on. But let's just go ahead and hit it in whatever order you would like.
Yeah, why don't we do it by label? Why don't we start off with Resonance Records? How's that?
So let's start off with this amazing. This has been out in bootleg form before on Dragon Records, but that didn't include both trios. And the sound quality was pretty good on this, but this is just another, this is right up there with Sonny Rollins and Holland. I haven't even cracked this yet because I got the files and listened to those. But what an exceptional live recording, Freedom Weaver. Tell me the story behind this and how you were able to pull together all the performances.
Thanks so much. It's miraculous, honestly. Working with Sonny Rollins is an unbelievable privilege, and it's been a gift and an unbelievable experience. We had a chance. I mean, look, I first met Sonny Rollins when I was probably 20 years old, and I even remember as a stranger the kindness that he showed towards me and some other kids that got to hang out backstage at a show where he was playing. Um, and I'm lucky also because about 17, 18 years ago, we did an in-store together when he put out his Without a Song 9/11 concert from Milestone Records when I worked at Concord. But I'm just, first of all, been a lifelong fan, it seems, since my teenage years of Sonny Rollins. I'm at a loss of words to describe his greatness. He is the greatest living jazz legend and prolific. He's also an incredible human being who is very spiritual and wise. And just, it's been amazing speaking with him. During the pandemic, He was so kind. He would call me sometimes in the morning. I would often
Wow.
be out of my walks, and we would talk about things. And anyways, he's just a very deep guy. And we had a chance in 2021 of doing this album that you mentioned before, Rollins and Holland, which was just wonderful. And it actually did quite well. And it had a studio recording in there, but no one had ever heard before. Just wonderful. But ever since that release, we've been very proactive at Resonance to see if there would be any possibility of working with Mr. Rollins again. And we would knew it would have to be some very special circumstances and things would have to line up because he doesn't have to do anything at this point. Um, but he liked what we did on Rollins and Holland, and I'm always very transparent. First of all, the love of the music and the passion first, but getting a chance to really build something that's dressed in tuxedo, something that is very elegant, something that will really do justice. But these recordings before you, in front of you with Freedom Weaver, are really important because it seems to be that there's this ongoing saga of righting the wrongs from the past.
Hmm.
And these recordings have only been available in terms of collectors and bootleg releases over the years. They've never had an official release before, and this was the opportunity for us to do something and to make it really nice and having a great presentation. Um, and this is a lot of music from this 1959 European tour that he did with trios, with Henry Grimes and Pete LaRocca, also Joe Harris and Kenny Clark. But this is a very important tour that he did. Sonny Rollins is taking chances, playing without a net, to borrow the cliche, and dare I say, avant-garde for 1959. This is really just some remarkable music. But he had never even been paid before for these recordings that have been
Wow.
sitting out there. And it was a chance for us to right the wrongs from the past, give it a great presentation. But all you need to do is listen to the music. And I mean, he is soaring and you just listen. These guys sound amazing. And for the LP master, we had Bernie Grundman do the mastering, and he adds his layer of sheen, if you will, with using his proprietary technology. But we wanted to put this music out, and I just feel very privileged and very grateful that Mr. Rollins would entertain this idea because he's not always interested in revisiting the past, like a lot of very serious artists.
We're
So
always
this
looking forward. Yeah.
always, and this took some very special consideration, but it's amazing when you listen to these recordings. And, I wanted to have a really great presentation. We have all these photographs, some of which are very rare. Most people haven't seen. I had Burton Yount design a wonderful album cover.
The boot I've always seen from Dragon, it didn't have, it was just Henry Grimes and Pete LaRocca, and it said 1958. Is it the same recording?
Yeah, like a lot of bootlegs, a lot of
It's
information is
not
from.
quite right.
So for this release, we were very lucky to be able to work with our dear friend, engineer icon, Bernie Grundman, who did the mastering using his proprietary technology. And we had the folks at Lavinylist press this on vinyl, which is an incredible audiophile pressing plant based in Canada that
Ah,
Resonance has been working with a long time. Don't hold me to this. I won't guarantee it. But as an example, sometimes it says 180, but we've had their pressings up to 200 gram, and they do a really remarkable job. But anyways, we really wanted to give a presentation fit for a king and have this as being the definitive version, Ken,
it's four LPs.
4 LPs,
Right.
180 gram. And
And what's the window of time after one of these comes out that the CD is then available?
the CDs will be available the following Friday, the
Wow.
26th of April this year.
Okay.
But the LP is a really wonderful experience. It's very high quality. It's an elegant presentation at 4 LPs in a liftoff box with this incredible booklet. And I will tell you something. It was a major undertaking for us at Resonance Records. When you're talking about a 4 LP set, it's a lot more resources, it's a lot more work, it's a lot more risk. But we love Sonny Rollins, and we were just so grateful for this opportunity that we wanted to roll out the red carpet. First of all, Sonny gave us an interview for the package, which is wonderful. And it's really great to have his words, but we've also got, let me read down the names here. Branford Marsalis, James Carter, Joe Lovano, James Brandon Lewis, and even the late Peter Brotzman. This is Sonny Rollins, and it's Sonny Rollins in 1959, in a period in jazz history where so much new ground was being cut and made, and music was evolving. But I just think that it's some of the most exciting and daring Sonny Rollins. But now we can take down the YouTube bootleg, okay? Now we can have the official release out there to live on. But it wouldn't have happened without Mr. Rollins. So I really want to thank him and Terry again. And I hope everyone will enjoy this release. We've made 4,000, but it's numbered up until 5.
Well, let's talk about something I know absolutely nothing about, Art Tatum. This is another 3 LP set with beautiful photos, an amazing booklet. The fidelity is quite good. The fidelity is great on the Sonny Rollins, but it was always pretty good on the bootleg, to tell the truth. Well, give me the lowdown on this. Recorded live at the Blue Note Jazz Club in Chicago, 1953. Oh, with Slam Stewart and Everett Barksdale. Wow. Why this? Why now? And how did you get this?
I'll say it again. I think this is like the Dead Sea Scrolls in terms of the importance. We're probably somewhere around the 20-year mark since the last major Art Tatum release, which was this Storyville box set. And since I've been working at Resonance and on this journey with George Claben, my co-president, we've had ongoing conversations over the years of, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could find some unissued Eric Dolphy? Wouldn't it be great if we could find some Charlie Parker? Still working on that. But we also really were committed to trying to find previously unissued Art Tatum. And our prayers were answered a few years ago when, thank you to the late, great Phil Schaap, who spoke with an archivist named Parker Fischel. Parker actually does some work with Bob Dylan's camp. And they reached out to Schaap, and Schaap was like, you should check in with Resonance Records. And we met the family of the Holtzwein family. We met the children of the club owner, Frank Holtzwein, who owned the Blue Note Jazz Club in Chicago. And they had these tapes, these reel-to-reel tapes that were done from performances back in March of
They
1953.
just had them down in their basement or something?
Something to that end.
Wow.
They were under wraps. And I'm looking at a list and I see Art Tatum and my eyes are like bulging out. And it's not just good Art Tatum, it's great Art Tatum. It's Art Tatum that also is with a really tight working band that he worked with for a very long time. These guys did lots of hits all around the country. I think there's even a photograph somewhere of them touring and going around. They like have this telepathic power and can read each other extremely well. But this is just something of like biblical sort of proportions to George and I, because we love Tatum. The dexterity and the ability that this man had and the way that he played music was, I mean, there are other great pianists, but he's really unrivaled even to this day and in his own league. I think of guys like Dick Hyman. I think of McCoy Tyner.
Oscar
I
Peterson,
think of
obviously, yeah.
Peterson, I mean, a lot of guys. But Tatum is something that's really, he's so special. And these recordings really celebrate his legacy. Why does Art Tatum matter? Well, 2 of our senior statesmen we spoke to, the late, great Ahmad Jamal, and we spoke with Sonny Rollins
Oh,
and
really?
Terry Gibbs,
Huh.
who told me he got, I think, inadvertently elbowed in the nuts from Tatum because he was standing too close to the piano one time. You can read Terry's anecdote in there. He was a pisser. I gotta say, I'm a little high on my own stash, but I really feel that we rolled out the red carpet for a way for Art Tatum that's important, that matters. This is not just a recording. We're building an experience with images. I hope that this rises the tide and people will be remembered of this legend's greatness. And guess what? If you're listening here for the very first time and you don't have any Art Tatum,
Great place to start. Amazing place to
unbelievable.
start.
But when I listen to Art Tatum, though, when I hear him do these runs, when I listen to his dexterity, you realize how incredibly unique he is. They are a great pianist, but there was one Art Tatum. But all you got to do is just read the liner notes and put on the music. It's a whole thing for everyone. It's
You're
it's
making
an
me think of
experience.
that's great. Let's talk about the next one on Jazz Detective Deep Digs and Elemental. Sun Ra at the Showcase live in Chicago. And as
Uh,
I mentioned to Zev, this is I don't know much about Sun Ra, 'cause I never know where to start. The Jazz Records, and we have so many records, they come and go very quickly. But this is a great place to start. It includes Marshall Allen, John Gilmore. It's 1977 and 76. You have totally free jazz avant-garde moments. You have incredible call and response moments where the audience knows exactly what's happening. You have these freaky, I don't know if it sounds like he's manipulated or treated a farfisa. Then you have almost R&B things. It's really like the entire world of Sunrise. And it's
thank you.
limited to 3,000 pressings.
Yes. Thank you so much. Well, he is really such a towering figure in this music. He transcends audiences and different generations and the traditions being what is going on. One of the interesting things about this music, too, there are very few guys that can play the inside and the outside. I think a
And
guy
then some. Yeah.
I think of Jackie Byard. I think of Don Friedman. I think Sam Rivers. I think there are a lot of guys, but there are these moments of bliss that are inside and outside. We even hear Fletcher Henderson's theme song, Rose Room, that they do, and it's a wonderful recording, and it's very accessible at times, and it's also got all the different flavors in the roux, if you will. And this is my first collaboration with the Sun Ra Trust. I met them thanks to my good friend Garrett Shelton a year or two ago, who introduced me and gave me their information. And we talked about how great it would be to do a collaboration together. And this is the first one. This is Sun Ra at the Showcase, recorded at Joe Siegel's Jazz Showcase. The Sun Ra Trust had these tapes. They didn't come from Joe Siegel.
Where's the Sun Ra Trust located?
Up in space, of course. But sorry. Um, Michael D. Anderson, who is the archivist with the fund. There are tapes in different places, but Michael is a really extraordinary cat. And he compiled all this and put it together for us and did a really outstanding job. And the music is great. I mean, if you didn't have any Sun Ra like you, this is a great place to
Great
start.
place to start.
And it's
Yeah.
fun. Like there's cool fucking music. Pardon me. It's really cool. What's going
Really
on?
covers the gamut of Sun Ra.
Yeah.
I mean, it's party music, it's serious avant-garde music. The call and response stuff really freaked me out because it's like going to Rocky Horror Picture Show. They know exactly what's coming. For people who know what that is back in the day, there's probably some modern day equivalent of that. But it's just a blast, and the recording is quite good. The fidelity is pretty damn good. People are very concerned on these about the fidelity,
Yeah.
which they have a right to be paying for whatever some of these prices are. But everything we've talked about so far sounds really great.
Thank you. We always try, it's you have to decide first of all how great is the music, and then we have to look at these other factors too. But we always strive at the best audio. It's just really amazing with what's able to be accomplished in the engineering realm now. But
Incredible.
you have these tapes to work with, it really makes so much possible. And Hal Rammel, who is the photographer, he was there at the shows. In the inner gatefold, there's a whole smattering of these images that really kind of bring the whole thing to life.
One of the first ones I played that absolutely blew my mind, Yusef Lateef, Atlantis Lullaby, the concert from Avignone. This is a 2 LP set, limited to 2,900 pressings. And it's really the lineup. Kenny Barron is on fire on this thing and really kind of runs the show. And when I reviewed it on my channel, I said that it made me recall there are 2 Kenny Barron fusion records that are impossible to find now that are highly collectible. They're on Catalyst or something. But man, this is a beautiful recording. He's in amazing form. They stretch out. They're doing Kenny Barron tunes, and there's some very sort of populist sort of stuff on here as well. The kind of, it's like almost commercial. But all things considered, what a fantastic record to show Yusef Lateef on. And there's not enough on there about him outside, so it's great to have this. Tell me the story of this one and how you found it. And the cover art's really beautiful too. It's a great font.
Thank you, Burton, for another amazing masterpiece. This guy is just a master designer, painter. There are a lot of really talented people that work with this type of music and doing these albums. And Burton Yount's been great. I've been working with the folks at INA in France for the last decade or so. Some of my releases include the most recent Searching in Grenoble for Mal Waldron, West Montgomery live in Paris, Larry Young in Paris, the Rara Varas NPR.
The earlier ones you did, yeah.
The guys at Elemental Music have been working with INA as well, and they also have a long-standing relationship with them. But I actually befriended Yusef Lateef when I was 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
I was the music director of my college radio station, and I had a weekly jazz program that you probably couldn't pick up too far off the parking lot. But it was a very exciting time, and I never forget. It was my job to get music for the station. There it is right there. And I call an ad in the back of Downbeat magazine for YAL Records, and Mr. Lateef picked up the phone and he started sending me albums. They were really CDs. That's what he was making at the time. A lot of stuff with Adam Rudolph and other things that he was making for his own label. And we kind of hit it off. And he was a really nice man. He would go on tour and send me postcards when he'd be on the road. Like he'd be in Germany. I'd get like a postcard from Munich or wherever he was playing. I'm not kidding. You can't make this up. And then one time he even did an unsolicited letter of recommendation to the head of our faculty, reinforcing that he thought we were all doing a really great job running the radio station. When you listen to Atlantic and Impulse Outputs and My God, Savoy and Prestige, he's really one of the greats. And the guys at Elemental came to me with this and they said, "Would you like to work on this?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love Yusef Lateef." And
July 19th, 72 in Avignone. It's a wonderful recording, and the audience is going apeshit. This audience is so into it. It's surprising.
He was just, but it's a great music. It's a tour de force performance, and it was produced by Andre Francis and recorded by the ORTF. And Ina had the original tape reels we were able to work from. And that made things a lot really, you listen to the audio, it's broadcast quality, Ken.
Right.
It's really good. So those sort of things can make a difference.
The two Cannonball Adderley double LPs, Poppin in Paris, live at Olympia in 1972, and Burnin in Bordeaux, live in France, 1969. The only difference in the two lineups is we trade Joe Zonal for George Duke on the 72 release, and the bass player changes from Victor Gaskin to Walter Booker. Now, correct. I'll give my spiel, and then you can contradict me. This record with George Duke is fucking incredible, because you really get to hear George Duke. That's his prime George Duke. This is Frank Zappa era George Duke.
Right.
And he's sort of running the show, and it's just this is a remarkable recording, and I think he raises everyone's game, and they're all just playing their asses off. It's also great, both of these. It's very hard to find recordings with Roy McCurdy. It's really hard, and you can hear how great he is. And you can hear, particularly on this record, that they've definitely been listening to the latter period Miles Davis stuff. They are just stretching.
Thanks for bringing that up. There's so many elements of what was going on with the new thing at the time. It wasn't the new thing in jazz, but there was definitely a transitional shift for different artists.
And it hasn't been documented well enough.
And I think these two recordings for me, Burnin and Bordeaux, and this go together like peas and carrots. It's really a study in Cannonball, and it shows the bridge into the transition that he and other musicians were making. Thanks for bringing the Miles era. You just listen to what George Duke and what this band is delivering.
They are on fire.
It's hot.
They are stretching it.
It's really hot. And listen to Humming. Like, I mean, there are like these tunes on there. They're just something from the period, but Cannonball was changing.
Yeah.
His music was changing. And I think both of these records are really good. And I will tell you, I also really love Burnin and Bordeaux. They were two different statements, two different bands. And you know what? Maybe you're predisposed to like the later 70s
Well, let me
Cannon.
finish with my commentary. To the sound on this
Okay.
is great, and George Duke really pushes it. With Joe Zawinul, this is good. The sound isn't great. It's kind of a small mono spot. It's a little bit recessed. You know, if you're going to be picky, and I'm an audiophile, people are going to be picky, and people are picky when they buy these things.
Mm.
I'm like, this is essential. This is, if you're adderley completist, perhaps. I'm just not as crazy about this, even though it has Zawinul. I think it's because the recording is not as great. You don't get quite as engaged. And then this is so engaging, and the performances are so stretched and just killing. And that's all I have to say. And they're both limited to 2850, both on Elemental.
I think that this is really a broader study in Cannonball's music, and it's good to have this. It's both periods, it's different. I really like it a lot, but I respect your opinion, but I would also say that these go together, and I think more so than just completists though, but I think there's no doubt about Poppin in Paris cutting ground for sure.
And they're both, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're both really stretching on both of these records. And I think it's also important because, I mean, everybody knows Cannonball Adderley from Kind of Blue. They think of him as that happy fat guy who played amazing alto. Even his early recordings, I think on Mercury or Savoy. But you know, I've just found recordings of his over the past 6 months to show he was as advanced as anybody and doing really amazing stuff and moving forward. And he and his brother sound amazing on these recordings as well. This is Corey Weed's record, Jazz from Pacific Northwest, Shelly Manne and his men. But let's talk about this because this is long overdue that we get one of these from Shelly Manne, and it's just a consummate performance from Shelly Manne with his cats.
I'm really glad we did this
What a freaking
project.
photo!
Thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Ray Avery, I believe, that took that. You know, as Corey, I'm sure would tell you, I was nudging him a bit about this project because I had a lot of fire in my belly with this one. I knew that it needed to come out. There's never been a major archival release from the great Shelly Manne
Right.
before. And I think now, hey, I mean, he's a very important guy in the music, an unsung hero. And this was really an opportunity of presenting two recordings. I first got to know Tim Jackson at the Monterey Jazz Festival in 2006 when I worked at Concord Music Group, where at the time we had a series of recordings that we put out. So I was aware of this archives and I knew that there were other things that hadn't been out. And Tim and I kept talking over the years about wouldn't it be really terrific if we could find something else to do? Folks know that I'm like the co-custodian of the Penthouse Jazz Club tape archives, and we had an hour worth of performances from there. And I went to Corey with this idea, and I said, "Why don't we put this out on reel to reel?" And I said, "Man, you know, Corey's taken some chances. We did the Roy Brooks Understanding album a few
Yeah.
years ago, which caught a lot of people by surprise. Didn't catch me by surprise because I knew how important this was. This project has the same sort of importance because there are very few projects of man, there's never been a project like this from Shelly Manne before. And the bands are great and they really epitomize the West Coast scene. I mean, we have this again from the very first performance at the Monterey Jazz Festival in '58. You know, we have Monty
Right.
Budwig, Russ Freeman, Herb Geller. It's really great. You know, these performances from the Penthouse,
And they're
Monty
10 years apart, which is pretty fascinating. 58 and 66.
right. So, you know, but the 66 is with Monty again, Hampton Hawes,
Frank Strozier. Wow.
Rozier, Con Candoli, and we have a couple of tracks with Ruth Price. I'm really grateful to Corey for believing like all these releases. It takes resources, it takes money, it takes fundraising. But I was on a tear, like, we gotta do this. And Corey stepped up, man, and was like, yeah. Corey and I started Reel to Reel together as a home for us to produce these sort of releases. It's my hope that we'll get a chance to continue and find more releases to work on together. Corey has been a champion of the music, not just archival, but of living artists that are making a living putting out recordings day in and day out, and should
Right.
really be
Great stuff.
heralded and applauded for the great work that he's doing.
But yeah, this is just a bounty year, and it's really so much to put out in the amount of time you have. So I'm going to play devil's advocate on Chet Baker and Jack Sheldon in perfect harmony.
Okay.
And I'll give you my spiel. Jazz Detective, Deep Digs, Elemental, 4,000 pressings. It's a single LP, which is unusual. Has a great lineup, and it's such a weird contrast with Chet Baker, this shy master, with Jack Sheldon, who sounds like he's sort of trying out for the Rat Pack. Now, I'm old enough to remember when he would be on the Merv Griffin show and he'd do his thing. Great trumpet player, great West Coast trumpet player. But it seems like an odd pairing. I just didn't get it.
I'm going to take the other side of this because I couldn't be more opposed to you. I think we're very lucky that this gem exists in the first place. It's a studio album, which puts it in a whole other realm of discovery on its own. And it's a recording that predates the official comeback of Chet Baker by about 1 year. Chet Baker and Jack Sheldon, I said peas and carrots earlier, but these guys were best of friends.
Is that right?
Yes, they were. And they were dominant forces, of course, in the West Coast jazz scene. But it took an arranger, producer, and guitar player named Jack Marshall to bring them all into the studio with pianist Dave Frischberg, bassist Joe Mondragon.
The backup group is fantastic, and it's an excellent recording.
Well, this is an all analog recording. I was first contacted last year by legendary filmmaker Frank Marshall, the guy that did the Bourne Identity, Raiders of the Lost Ark, co-founder of Anthem Entertainment with Steven Spielberg, one of the great prolific filmmakers. Because here's the story. They make this album in 1972 in Tustin in a recording studio, and they're two guys. It's Jack
Texas,
Marshall,
right?
And Hank Quinn. No, it's Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jack Marshall and Hank Quinn make this record. And what happened was in 1973, sadly, Jack Marshall passed away suddenly. And the story goes that he had been shopping this, been trying to find a home to put it out. And it never happened. And when he passed away, it went into the family archives.
Wow.
And last year I was contacted by Frank and Jeff Pollock to see, hey, we hear that you're the guy for these sort of things. And as it was, I had done already 2 projects under my belt with the Chet Baker estate. So the timing was really good. And Jordy Soleil at Elemental is one of the biggest Chet Baker fans that you've ever met. And he thought it was extraordinary. This is a unique statement. You have vocals from both artists. This recording is an anomaly of anything else. And as far as I know, it's the only time that Chet and Jack are recorded together. Maybe somebody else has other information, but we had that tape reel, and Matt Luthans was able to do an all analog master on vinyl, and also the CD sounds great too. I know how you love CDs, Ken. But the reality is it's a wonderful, I think it's a great project. I think it's unique. I think it's a great statement. We made 4,000 of them for the world. They're all going to sell out. And it's an important recording. These projects are very challenged sometimes when they're single LPs. Because, there's all sorts of inside baseball stuff to making these records happen.
I can't imagine. And a release that proves you're into this for the long haul on Deep Digs. Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
She is the godmother of rock and roll. It
really is. And you can hear it on this. It's just her and her guitar in France. Or no, and a lot of records in France, because France, they're jazz lovers. 2 LP set. It's just full on fire.
And it's a guitar lover's record, by the way, too. Really, when you listen to this, you realize how much of a great guitar player she really is.
And she plays some beautiful guitars, too.
She did. You see the SG on there, and there's also pictures of her playing another Gibson, I believe, in the inside. So here's the story. I first discovered these recordings in 2017 when I was doing a search at the ENA archives. I love Sister Rosetta Tharpe. She was really one of the first earliest. I mean, you can argue Louis Armstrong, Sidney Bechet, but she was an African American woman, a performing artist who had built a following in Europe. When you listen to the recording, she has like 3 encores. They're on their feet. And guess
Yeah.
what? That only came because she had been touring over there for years and building an audience. And again, this comes from the ORTF radio archives in France. And this recording, I carried this on my back for 7 years, trying to
Oh,
find a record label that would want to put it out. And when I started Deep Digs, it was really apparent that this is a place where it could be,
finally, let's talk about this record that I really, really loved.
Oh
It's kind of
man.
forget it, but what an amazing example of space and collaboration and synergy. I mean, what a beautiful. It's also a great recording for Andrew Cyrille and Reggie Workman. The Mighty Warriors recorded live at the Single Arts Center, Antwerp, Belgium, September 1995.
Yep.
2,350 pressings. And this is just it's a beautiful recording, a beautiful performance. It's so spacious. It reveals so much about Mal Waldron, great liner notes. And if you don't know anything about Mal Waldron, and the liner notes sort of lean towards him, this is an incredible introduction. He's so stately and grand and thoughtful. And the recordings, everybody gets really great solo space, some unaccompanied solo space. It's really just a great effort and a beautiful cover too. I mean,
Thank you.
once again, and I'm not blowing you, it's the truth. You really knocked it out of the park this time. It's amazing.
So here's the story. This was done in 1995 when Mal Waldron was celebrating his 70th birthday in Antwerp. They did a little festival for him where they did a series of concerts. And Hiromi Walden, Mal Waldron's widow, had these recordings. At Elemental Music, they're very good friends with the son of saxophonist Barney Willen, Patrick Willen.
Oh,
And Patrick Willen's wife, she is best of friends with Hiromi, and they made us aware of these recordings. And again, Elemental comes to me and they're saying, "Hey, would you like to work with us on this?" Would I love to work with you? Of course. And I love Mal Waldron. These guys, it's not just Mal. All 4 of these guys they are warriors.
what a great band.
They communicate with each other. There's just such a depth to this music. They're painters.
Yeah,
And Mal Waldron should have more of a shining light on him.
yeah.
I mean, all you need to do is listen to the Coltrane output on Prestige Records to know that he was a major contributor and helped shape those records with his own compositions. He had his own style for phrasing and playing and comping. And I just love this release. I think there's a tremendous experience that's been built here for the fans, and we worked really hard. Again, Burton Yount hit it out of the park with the album cover.
Great audio,
It is.
great liners. I mean, this is an essential. I know you're working on some more pop-oriented historical archival releases, so it made me wonder if this incredible bounty of releases, 10 releases, is you steering away from jazz and starting to focus more on pop music.
No, absolutely not. Jazz is it is like the meat and potatoes of my diet. And I love that. But I guess what? I listen to a lot of different types of music. I'm a classical music audiophile, classic rock, orchestral classical, piano recitals.
No kidding.
Doesn't it really just bottle me up right here? I mean, so no, it's for me, it's really about finding music that inspires me first and foremost. Because if I don't have that, I don't want to be involved. I've turned down so many projects because I'm not interested in the music. And I hope that I'll always be able to maintain that sort of edict. And that's been really the case. But I got to be really into it. So I'm looking for other things that I'm into always because it's a creative muscle that I get to flex. And I can do some good in the world by bringing things out that haven't been out before.